Alright, I don't know if my camera's gonna pick this up, but I do have my mic glove here. But hello everyone, Brickships 1912 here. And as you can see, my face is in the camera again. And there's an actual boat behind me. Today, I thought I'd do something a little bit special for this little piece of Australian history behind me. I thought I would actually build the model that I've designed in front of her. So, without any more stalling, let's get into the video. So, the tugboat that you can see behind me, her name, as you would have all seen in the title of the video, is the steam Tug Wattle. Now, she has a bit of a story to her, so I'm going to summarize it here for you while we have the build play in the background. But the Wattle was ordered in 1932, originally named Codico, and on the 28th of December 1933, the Commonwealth Government approved the transfer of Codico to the Royal Australian Navy without a cost. And then on 15th of February 1934, Codico was renamed the Wattle as a non-commissioned vessel of the RAN, operating in the Sydney region with a civilian crew. For its near 40-year life with the RAN, Wattle was engaged with a variety of harbour duties, including manoeuvring smaller warships, towing targets and barges, rescue work, and transporting goods and personnel between ships and shore. During World War II, Wattle was also engaged in degaussing experiments. And apart from being a harbour tug with limited endurance and power, a major concern with Wattle was its manoeuvrability in harbour environment. Wattle was found to be hard on the helm, requiring considerable effort and accurately steer in tight situations. Consequently, a steam steering engine was taken from a Sydney ferry and fitted on the deck just after the engine room skylight in September of 1942, just to give a little bit more assistance in steering. After a long service period with the Royal Australian Navy, Wattle was paid off in 1969 and put with the reserve fleet at Athol Bay, in expectation of being sold for scrap. In the early 1960s, a group of Sydney-based marine steam enthusiasts made an unsuccessful bid to save the tug Bustler from the wreckers. At that time, they were aware the Wattle was approaching the end of its life with the RAN, but turned their attention acquiring other steamships, the Lady Hopetown, Waratah, and John Oxley, and in the process established the Sydney Maritime Museum. In 1976, Lee Dogue, I'm sorry if I've messed up that name, a young man with a passion for vintage steamships, formed a small not-for-profit volunteer group, the Victorian Steamship Association, to acquire a vessel to operate on Port Phillip. Lee was aware of the problems the Sydney syndicate was experiencing with Wattle and commenced discussions concerning its preservation. During 1978, the syndicate agreed to gift Wattle to the VSA in an unencumbered state. Before accepting the ship, Lee had her slipped at Barry Bay in November of 1978 for inspection and maintenance. In January of 1979, Lee and Murray Hill, a marine engineer and member of the VSA, raised steam on the Wattle and completed test runs of the ship on Sydney Harbour, assisted by a scratched crew from the Sydney Maritime Museum. Later that year, Wattle was towed to Victoria. VSA volunteers began a major restoration program at 20 Victoria Dock to bring Wattle into commercial passenger survey. Coincidentally, the berth at Victoria Dock was also marked the start of an ongoing association with the sail training schooner Alma de Perle, also undergoing restoration at that time. From 1980, restoration progressed with a small volunteer workforce, kind donations from industry and supporters, and limited finances. Restoration accelerated in 1984 when VSA received a grant of $110,000 from the Community of Employment Program to engage long-term unemployed people, and the Victorian government invested $45,000 from the Victorian Economic Development Committee in the Wattle's restoration. Now, it was during this time that Wattle was brought up to a working order. And in early 2007, a group of businessmen formed Surrey Steam to re-establish a steam tram service to Surrey on the Mornington Peninsula, but difficulties of this project led them to look at other possibilities, and in 2007, Surrey Steam initiated discussions with BSMM on its ways to save the Wattle. On the 8th of 2008, Surrey Steam purchased Wattle for $1 and formed an agreement with BSMM for both entities to cooperate and do all the necessary to restore Wattle to an approved seaworthy state. Surrey Steam covering the restoration and survey costs. In June of 2008, the tug was taken to Western Port for slipping, but it became clear the hull was in a worse situation than previously thought, and Wattle returned to Melbourne. On the 19th of September 2008, the Australian National Maritime Museum placed Wattle on the Australian Register of Historic Vessels. But at the North Wharf, where the tug waited beside Alma de Perle, both ships urgently required lifting out of the water due to their deteriorating hulls. After careful analysis of their skills and finances, and the offer from Parks Victoria of a site at 19 South Wharf for a permacon rent, Surrey Steam and BSMM decided to restore Wattle with a mix volunteer labour and specialist contractors. On the 22nd of October, Wattle was lifted out of the water by two large mobile cranes, placed on a low loader and transported under the Bolt Bridge to a specially prepared hard berth adjacent to 19 South Wharf. Once Wattle was settled on her engineering design blocks, and the surrounding area became a mini shipyard, with the shipping containers converted to workshops for engineering, tools, woodwork, administration, galley, and storage. It became apparent to the restoration of the hull, in its very poor condition, that the concrete used as ballast in its earlier life was putting a lot of strain on the ship in the waterline down. After some 70 years of seawater penetration between the ballast and the ship's frames and plates, the result of extensive corrosion from the inside out. So Wattle's hull was actually corroding inside outwards. Early restoration priorities concerned and concentrated on the hull, engine room components, and the salvage restoration of timber fittings. Major activities included the removal of the concrete ballast, corroded plates, frames, and the removal of a rudder and post steering, and a new propeller. In 2015, the ship's new propeller and rudder were installed, along with work on the boilers and pumps. While topsides, new timber decking was laid, Wattle was undercoated and painted in her new livery, a green hull, which has since been painted over into a black, as you see in the video. But it was a race against time. The downstream creep of new high-rise apartments was continuing, and developments were starting to demolish buildings adjacent to the site. In early 2015, BSMM were told by Places Victoria that they would have to vacate by the 30th of June that year. After negotiations, BSMM were able to stay for a few months longer, and Wattle's return to the water was planned for the end of September of 2015. After much hard work by volunteers, Bay Steamers Maritime Museum returned Wattle to the water in 2015. Apart from relaunching Wattle, other jobs since 2009, extensive descaling, repair, preparation, painting of many parts of the ship, reinstallation of rudder tiller, overhaul of the steering engine, and a whole lot more. Since the lift out in October of 2009, volunteers have had to put in 1,600 hours of labour, applying the same rates that contractors use to those hours. Work was contributed to a value of somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million, and the efforts have continued. And that basically has brought us up to where Wattle is today. She is back in the water, still getting love and attention to her. She just celebrated her 90th birthday. So everyone, that is it for today's video. I hope you have enjoyed this bit of a different video on the channel. If you want to read more about Wattle, I will leave a link to their website down below. And I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.